This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
Good afternoon, 3:01 on a Tuesday afternoon, July 4th week, and Bump is out, as you know. The cavalcade of guests continue with me, the head cheese, Dave Sinykin, in the big chair today and tomorrow. Not sure what we got planned as the holiday gets closer, but who cares? It's Tuesday, and I'm very happy to be here for the next... Kara, is it a 3.5 hour tour today, to be clear, just so I know?
Yes, it's 3.5 hours.
I was afraid of that. I mean, I was excited about that. Yes. Kara, nice to meet you. Nice to be with you. Thanks for sitting in today.
Yeah, thanks for letting me sit in.
Of course. Well, it's not me letting you. I'm glad to have you. Brett Blakemore on a much-deserved vacation, watching probably his beloved Atlanta Braves. So Kara's steering the ship today as I'm just going to lay it out. I mean, if you know anything about me, well, you might presume I'm going to talk the green and gold. Obviously, that's not going to happen. It might happen tomorrow for a bit. Yeah, I've got tomorrow's show pretty much mapped out, but I have an opening in the 4 o'clock hour. I happen to run into Muss in the hallway. We're talking, and suddenly the smack talk begins with Muss about, who has the worst quarterback in the division, blah, blah, blah. And we started kind of going back and forth, and I started thinking, this is a segment. Let's just stop talking. Football in July, tomorrow, pencil it in, 4 o'clock. So I think we'll have a nice cavalcade of guests tomorrow as well, and we'll get off of basketball. But if you know me, it's not just Pack, it's basketball. And so today, with the just crazy signings and trades and jumping around in the NBA of the last 24-plus hours, this will be very NBA heavy. It's an instant warning. I'm telling you at 3:02. It's predominantly buckets today. Virtually exclusively. We'll venture off a little bit. Let me lay out the guest lineup. Shoot, I should remember what Bump's guest sponsor is. Kara, you probably don't have that. No, of course not. Abbott, somebody will send me that so I can give them the proper due. But I'll tell you, the guest lineup for today, a cavalcade of stars to talk hoops with me, beginning at the bottom of the hour, 3:30. Dane Moore joins the program of the Dane Moore podcast to talk all things Wolves. We'll talk a little of some of the big NBA news as well. But a couple days in, the Wolves roster has come into pretty clear focus, unless Tim Connolly provides some hocus pocus. And I'm done being Dr. Seuss for the moment. Dane Moore to talk Wolves offseason. Are we done for the most part? Minus maybe a little ad here or there. Or could there be more things at play? Dane Moore joins at 3:30 today. At 4:30, Marnie Gellner joins the program. Huge Lynx game tonight as the ladies look to get paid. They will not have to face Caitlin Clark. She has been ruled out by the Indiana Fever, which certainly dampens, right, the enthusiasm tonight. I mean, it's going to be a packed house, no matter what. But the bonus of having Caitlin Clark along with the Indiana Fever made this game, I think, for many, must-watch. It still should be must-watch. There's still a championship to be won, a banner to be raised, a cup to be won, money to put in your pockets, but it loses some of its steam with Caitlin still nursing the groin injury. She will miss tonight's game. Marnie Gellner at 4:30 to talk Lynx, Fever, WNBA expansion, and some Wolves, too. Her thoughts on what the Wolves have done over the first day and change. And then, 5 o'clock today, Double T, Trent Tucker, for some bonus in the zone on a Tuesday afternoon. Trent's going to come in studio for the 5 o'clock hour as we try to make sense of what's gone down in the NBA over the last day or so. Just some crazy moves today involving my hometown Milwaukee Bucks, waiving Damian Lillard. That's the news du jour, right? I mean, yes, Josh Minot just signed with the Celtics. That's big, right? I mean, there's suddenly the Celtics are a feeder system the Wolves are a feeder system for the Celtics, right? Luka Garza, Josh Minot, the end of the bench. The Celtics have been pining and dreaming about acquiring the end of the Wolves bench, apparently, as both those guys get an opportunity for a Celtics team in transition. But no, that wasn't the biggest news of the day. I think the biggest news in the NBA today, maybe SGA might quibble because he got paid $285 million, richest contract ever, 4 years, $285. Big for him. But the Bucks first signing Miles Turner off the Indiana Pacers roster in a shocking move. I'm sure had Bucks fans thrilled. Giannis is going to be so happy. Moments later, you learn the only way they could afford Miles Turner was to waive Damian Lillard and eat the rest of his contract, $113 million. They'll spread over 5 years. We'll get Trent's thoughts on all of that in the 5 o'clock hour as he joins in studio. Kara, I'm going to leave it up to you because we're not doing a top 5 at 5 because Trent's going to be in the house. If you would like to do a top 5 at 6, find the top 5 sports talkers of the day, that's your call. If you don't, no sweat. We can dance around that last half hour. But I've given you, almost 3 hours to think about it, consider it. If you want to try to throw 5 sports nuggets together, we can do that at 6. That's your homework assignment, but
Okay.
it's not mandatory. That's the beauty of this homework assignment. It's completely optional.
My favorite homework.
If you'd like to do it, that would be great. Are you an NHL person at all?
I am a little bit, yes.
All right, so I'm going to, more homework for you.
Okay. More homework.
We should do pre-production meetings. Really, that would make some sense. So
Right.
Just like talking in the hallway about college and who got kicked out of where. If anything breaks in the NHL free agency front,
Yes.
just keep an eye on that. My Twitter feed does not provide a ton of hockey news because that's not my jam. But if the Wild do something, if something big happens in the next few hours, I want to know about it and the world will want to know about it. So just keep an eye if any big NHL news breaks. That would be fantastic. So great to be here. Holiday week. Lovely day today. Hope you're outside enjoying it, listening to the fan while you're out and about today. Quickly, my thoughts on what the Wolves have done so far. I don't think anyone who follows this team really closely is real surprised the way it went down. They were able to bring Nas back. They were able to bring Randall back and sign him to a new deal for 3 years at a salary that makes sense. And you see some of the deals that were signed today. There's a lot of Nas type deals, same kind of money. Miles Turner with the Bucks, same kind of money. A lot of those 125s. It'll be fun to compare Nas with some of those players as we go forward. But we all know that the only way they could have signed Nas and Julius Randle was through that Towns trade, knowing that Nas was going to be a casualty of the luxury tax and the second apron had they not moved Towns. So the ability to keep Nas, the bonus is you get Dante. You also get that draft pick that turned into Joan Beranger. And so Na was the casualty. He was going to be the guy that they couldn't keep. They were able to at least work out a deal with the Hawks to make both sides happy. The Hawks maintain some more flexibility by doing the sign and trade. The Wolves get a future second. They get some cash and a trade exception that, again, down the road, according to Johnny Krasinski, it's not something they're likely to deal with this year, but maybe this time next year, they'll have $5-6 million to spend on a player. Maybe that happens sooner. It just gives them some more flexibility. You hate to lose a guy like Alexander Walker, right? I mean, obviously he was fantastic this season, and there were a couple playoff games where he was the best Timberwolf. But the way the economics work, there was just no way to keep all 3 guys. And if you're going to lose one, he's the one because you've got young players you think can take those minutes. And I would argue Terrence Shannon, to me, has a bigger upside than Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I don't know that he'll ever be the defender Walker is or as flexible a player, but I think he can be dynamic offensively for a team that's going to covet offense beyond Randall and Ant. I think Shannon has a chance to make a major leap, and they had to find minutes for him. You know, they're running back this team for the most part. The entire rotation's back except Na, so you need growth from everybody. I mean, from Ant and McDaniels and Nas for sure, but giving Shannon that plank to walk down, give him those minutes. Obviously, Jalen Clark and Dillingham are going to get an opportunity as well. So I'm not surprised at all by those moves, and really not so much by the draft either, because there just isn't a whole lot of room right now for a championship contender to expect a mid-first-round pick to jump right in and be a guy. My concerns are there's basically one spot left to fill. Technically 2, but teams technically usually leave that last spot open. They've got 13 guys signed. They did sign Joe Ingles back today. Interested to get Dane Moore's thought on that. By all accounts, that's a chemistry move. Great on the end of the bench. Doesn't expect to play a lot. Very encouraging with his teammates, sort of a coach at the end of the bench, and that's a nice luxury to have. And that's fine. We all like Joe. But with just one spot left, and there's really a couple needs, right? You could certainly use another point guard, and you could use another big. If you don't think the 18-year-old Frenchman's ready to step right in and play backup minutes to Rudy, be nice to find another big back there to take the Garza minutes that might have more opportunity this year. I don't think Nas at center is ideal. I think we'll see some of that, but defensively, that's not ideal. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Béranger is ready to give them 7 or 8 minutes a game at 18 years of age. Maybe when the Summer League opens next week and they're playing the Pelicans and game 1, we find this guy is like, he can't keep him off the court. He's ready to play. So a lot of, I guess, unsurprising moves by the Wolves, but we like to let Tim cook, as you all know, and we'll see what he has in his bag. Just because the roster looks like this in July doesn't mean it'll look like this in September. Just go back to last year. We remember what happened on the eve of training camp. So Wolves pretty much understand where they are. Some of their competitors in the West look a lot stronger. We'll talk about that as we go throughout the day today. Glad to have you along. Here's the plan. We'll come back, a little baseball talk next segment with the Twins back in action. It's Bobby Bonilla Day. Who's celebrating besides Bobby Bonilla? That amazing deal continues. We'll remind you what that's all about. Talk some Twins and some links as well. Big night at Target Center tonight. All that coming up next segment. Dane Moore, bottom of the hour. It's Dave Sinykin in for Dan Barrero on this lovely Tuesday afternoon. Thanks for being along for the ride. We're back after these.
And the Fan.
The Fan and BigDeck.com want to give you a shot to win bonus bucks with our national cash contest. Enter the keyword green at KFAN.com now for your shot at winning. That's keyword green. Enter it now at KFAN.com.
We are back, 3:18 on a Tuesday afternoon. Sinykin in for Barrero today for the next 3 hours and change, talking lots of buckets as the news. It's fun. I mean, my son Jackson, who's obsessed with the NBA, he was driving home from MOA yesterday looking for a gift for his gal, and I was just concerned that he wasn't even watching the road, because he's one of those guys that's going to be just on Twitter every single second to see, because that's what it was like yesterday. Every 30 seconds there was a Shams bomb or some news, and fortunately he got home safely. Lots of hoops talk today. I want to talk a little baseball for a moment. Twins back in action at 5:40, so we'll kind of pay attention to the first hour or so of the Twins game. No need to go listen. We'll keep you updated as they open a series in Miami against the red-hot Marlins, who have won 7 straight. First visit down at South Beach for the Twins since the beginning of the 23 season back in April. April's always the time to go to Miami. That's ideal. July, not so great. Joe Ryan on the hill to try to turn this thing around just a bit. At least June is over. A 9-18 June is behind the Twins, and maybe July's going to give them something a little more positive. It's Ryan against Edward Cabrera tonight, and we get Royce Lewis back. At least he's been activated. I didn't hear yet if he's in the lineup for sure, but it sounds like Royce Lewis is back after 3 weeks with the hammy, and every Twins fan, of course, whenever he puts the ball in play, is going to hold their breath and see if he can get to first base without pulling up lane and get through, I don't know, a couple series, maybe get to the All-Star break with no complications, get some nice time off. That would be helpful. 5:40 start for your Twins against the Marlins tonight with Joe Ryan on the hill. I mentioned before the break, it's indeed a Bobby Bonilla Day. He will be paid by the Mets today, just shy of $1.2 million. It's the gift that keeps on giving. And I know deferrals in baseball have now become kind of a thing. It's more accepted. It's done most famously by Ohtani, I think he's being paid $2 million a year right now by the Dodgers? For the next 8 years. I might be mistaken. It's something like that. And then beginning in 2034, he'll get $68 million a year from the Dodgers for, 10 years? Something like that. So this Bonilla thing obviously is dwarfed by that. But I find it fascinating every year when it comes up that Bobby Bonilla, who last played in Major League Baseball, I think, what was it, 2000, I think, was due to make $5.9 million by the Mets. And they decided to buy him out. And instead of just giving him the $5.9 million, they say, no, we'll give you $1.2 million for the next 25 years instead. He did the math. He said, yeah, I like that. That works. Now, it's interesting. I didn't realize the backstory, which I read about today. If you go back to 2000 when this happened, the New York Mets ownership at the time had significant money invested with Bernie Madoff. You know, Mr. Ponzi scheme, Mr. below the lifetime savings of thousands of people with his corrupt business scheme, who's now, I believe, still rotting away in jail. I think he's still with us. The Mets were heavily invested. And were, of course, like many investors, promised double-digit returns in Bernie Madoff's business plan and the funds that he had set up. And, of course, that all went poof. They figured, well, if we've got all that money coming in, we can pay this kid $1 million for the next 25 years. That's no big deal. Peanuts compared to what Madoff's going to make us. Yeah, that didn't work out so well. So they're paying Bobby Bonilla until the year 2035. He's 62 years of age. He's making more money this year than Pirates ace Paul Skeens. And I mean, that's got to be worth a laugh around his table from time. Like today would be the day, right? What do you think Bobby Bonilla does today? The day the check arrives for the $1.2 million. Does he regale his young relatives with the story and maybe have a list of the significant major league players who will play 162 games this year and earn less money than he does? And he hasn't played in, decades. It's crazy. And he wasn't the first. Brett Saberhagen back in the day did the same thing back in 2004. The scaling's a little different. $250,000 a year for 25 years. He's still being paid by, I think it's the Royals, for another 4 or 5 years. $250,000 a year. I mean, for Bobby Bonilla, it's the pension that keeps on giving. It's unreal. And so every year on this day, we tip our caps to a great business decision that Bobby Bonilla made. And I hope he's invested it well. I hope he doesn't even need it, that it feeds, his investments and it's just growing and growing thanks to the New York Mets. I'm told that Bernie Madoff is dead. Thank you. Several people have texted me, 2021, I missed the memo, or more likely, I knew it. And like many things throughout my brain, it evaporates. I always make fun of myself because, like, on Saturdays, Trent will remind me, remember the 2021 Eastern Conference semifinal Game 4 between the whoever and the whoever in the fourth quarter when this happened? And I'm like, dude, I don't remember the Wolves' last game this year. Like, how do you I don't know, something's wrong with my brain that way. It just doesn't stick. And the Bernie Madoff news did not stick. So I don't need any more texts. Thank you very much for figuring that out for me. That would be great. I'm getting other deferred salaries that have been paid. Great players like Ken Griffey Jr. was paid $5 million a year for about 12 years after he retired. Understand. But the money that Bonilla is making compared to what he would have made if they just bought him out, it's I find it fascinating. All right, and then quickly, and we're going to talk more links in the 4 o'clock hour, but what a night it should be at Target Center tonight. Yes, it could have been much more enthralling and exciting if Caitlin Clark were there. She'll miss this game, this game that would feature the two all-star captains, Clark and the Lynx's Nafisa Collier. Collier expected to play. She's played the last two. 14-2 start for your Lynx, who have every incentive to take care of business tonight for a second straight year. And big-time payday for the players. More on that later. Again, we'll have Marnie Gellner in about an hour or so to preview tonight's game, talk Lynx, talk some Wolves as well. But I imagine that place is going to be absolutely packed tonight. I'm sure there'll be some young fans wearing Caitlin Clark jerseys, a bit disappointed. Don't think you'll see a Lynx player chastise any of those fans, as Kelsey Plum did. Did you hear about this? So the Sparks were playing, I think, Chicago in a shoot-around, and there's a young fan wearing a Caitlin Clark jersey. And Kelsey Plum said, "This will not do," and went and got her a T-shirt and asked her to wear it over the Caitlin Clark jersey. Yeah, maybe it was tongue-in-cheek. I don't think so much. It's interesting how WNBA players have reacted to what Caitlin Clark has become. And I'm interested to get Marnie's thoughts on that and talk a bit more about that in the 4 o'clock hour. For someone that is basically, I think, funding the potential for this league as it expands exponentially right now, the disdain these players have for Caitlin Clark, it's fascinating to me. Did you see the All-Star voting? She was first among fans. That's no surprise for guards in that conference. She was third among the media, and that's not, to me, scandalous. She's missed, this will be her 8th missed game this season out of 17. So I get that. She's spectacular when she's playing, but she's not been available. So the media voted her third. The players voted her as the 9th best guard in the East. The 9th best guard. She has a teammate, Kelsey Mitchell, who got more votes. She was 6th. And there's a lot to that. And I really find it interesting how players have reacted to Caitlin Clark, who, you know, is there a racial component? Probably. Is there a jealousy component? Of course. But big picture, man, what she represents and what she is, and it's not just her, I get that, but we know it's a lot. Her, the enthusiasm and excitement for women's basketball, beginning with her time in Iowa to now what it is in the WNBA, is unrivaled. You have teams that are playing the fever, that are moving games into NBA arenas to handle the ticket requests and the money pouring in. So to speak nothing of commercial airfare, what the TV ratings rights are going to do down the road. The New York Liberty were sold 5 years ago for between $10 and $14 million. They're now valued at $450 million. That's not all Caitlin Clark, of course. But there's a big component there. And a reason the WNBA is expanding, because the popularity of women's basketball is at a point we've never seen it. And Clark's ushering it in. Paige Beckers is ushering it in. Asia Wilson. There is a great group of young players. But when you've got a woman player who sells out a Kobe, like her own shoe, styled after the Kobe, in a minute, they were out of her shoes. That tells you there's something kind of crazy going on there. Pretty impressive. All right, let's pause here. When we come back, Dane Moore joins the program. His thoughts on the early start to the Wolves offseason, and maybe some overriding thoughts on the league and what he's seen the last 24 hours, what teams maybe have caused the Wolves to be a bit more concerned about their place in the West. All that and more as Dane joins the program, and we return on The Fan.
Extra.
With you, 3:35 on a Tuesday afternoon. It's the Bumper to Bumper with Barrero Show. Dave Sinykin in today. And if you like buckets, hang around for a few hours. That's what we're talking. Very happy to welcome our first guest of the program, Dane Moore, host of the Dane Moore podcast, who basically has to pump out new content every 14 minutes the way things are going with the Wolves right now. Dane, good afternoon. How we doing?
I'm good, man. Yeah, no, it's a fun time of the year. I feel like this is the end of the season. Everyone thinks it's, once they're eliminated, but the way the NBA works now, we got the draft, and then we got this week. Free agency's crazy, man.
It's unbelievable. Have you been, but let me step back. Before we talk Wolves, has there been one bit of news, one move, whether it's a signing, a trade, around the NBA the last 24-plus hours that has made you spit out your coffee and go, what did I just see?
I mean, the Damian Lillard getting waived today was surprising, and that started with the first kind of thing that popped up for news was Miles Turner signing and to the Milwaukee Bucks, and you're like, what? How
can they afford that, right?
To be able to do that,
right?
And then that's followed up with no Damian Lillard, and It's, yeah, man, Milwaukee is in a crazy sort of reeling position, but also has a lot of talent still on this team. They're still going for it. It's always interesting with these teams, right, man, where they got the superstar after they've already won one. How do they stay relevant? You see Milwaukee and Denver both working on that right now.
Yeah, and you're so at the mercy of health, right? I mean, if Damian doesn't tear his Achilles, obviously everything's different. But the idea that he's going to miss next season, he has 1 year left on a player option that he would have likely picked up, even though he's not excited about being halfway across the country from his kids. And, I mean, he's, by all reports, elated that this went down the way it did. From the Bucks perspective, as I think you know, Dane, I'm a guy who grew up in Milwaukee as a big Bucks fan. I did ride the roller coaster today with, wow, Miles Turner, whoa, Dame Lillard. There have been conflicting reports on how Giannis is taking all this. He was on board with Turner. He was excited about that. He was told that might happen. He was very excited, and then very disappointed that Dame was let go. I'd have to think they told him to get Miles, we're going to have to lose Dame. This, to me, reeks of a team that is just basically desperate to do all they can to keep Giannis in their uniform. And by adding Miles Turner to replace Brook Lopez and bring back a lot of the supporting cast they had last season, they're hoping they can make a run in a depleted Eastern Conference that doesn't have a true favorite with all the injuries. How do you read the move by the Bucks?
I think it reeks of we are in the dumbest era ever of reporting in sports. I mean, it's just such a joke how it all works, and it's conflicting reports that then become people's reality of how things are going down. And I mean, if the way that those reports are conflicting, there's somebody who's not doing their job right in reporting the information. So it doesn't make any sense that he could be excited about Miles Turner and frustrated about the departure of Damian Lillard unless he has no idea how the rules work. You can't have both. That is two immovable objects. Like it needed to have no Damian Lillard so as to have Miles Turner. So I would focus on that part of it, and I think this Milwaukee team is building around Giannis Antetokounmpo. You know, that's what it's been the whole time. I don't know if this is them like their way of bidding to keep him to stay or whatever it might be, and something else comes, but I don't know. That reporting doesn't make any sense.
No, I agree with you, but from a Milwaukee business perspective, to saddle the team now with a guy no longer on your team that you're going to be paying $23 million on the cap a year for the next 5 years does probably lead to a point that's going to handcuff what they can do down the road as they try to keep things going. I like the idea of trying to compete next season, but I think 2-3 years from now they're going to kind of rue the day they went this route.
Yeah, that's just how it works, man. I don't know. You're the Bucks fan, though. Like, What do you like the alternative better? Like, do you want him to trade Giannis? I don't know. I've kind of been thinking about this with the Julius Randle thing, and people are like, I don't know about bringing him back and bringing him back at that number. I'm like, well, you better not be the same people who are saying don't trade for Kevin Durant. You know what I mean? Like, there has to be these middle grounds that are reached, and I think we sometimes always create an alternative that is greater than the actual alternatives out there. In reality, I think that's just how free agency kind of zaps all of our minds.
No, I think you're right. For the record, I would have traded Giannis and gotten a just mother load and just started over, but that's me. I'm fine with him being there. Let's see what they can do, but I would have been fine to sell him off to the highest bidder and start over. Wolves are not doing that. The Wolves are running it back with virtually the same team. As I said at the top of the show, I don't think anybody's real surprised that 2 of the 3 stayed, and the 2 that did were the ones that did. Looks like, barring a significant Tim Connolly move, which certainly could happen between now and, well, hell, Halloween or beyond that. Any surprise from your side about how the Wolves have attacked the offseason these first few days?
Well, I think it's been a fascinating offseason from the standpoint of we knew it was going to be a kind of funky market, right? I think when I came in with you last time in studio, we were talking about this. It's just the limited cap space that was out there available was going to make the movement of players in this kind of Naz Reid, Julius Randle, Miles Turner, kind of $25 to $35 million a year players. How is that going to work? How were they going to get paid exactly? What were the market factors going to be? Because there just wasn't as many teams out there as normal to go get a $25 to $35 million player. So I think the most interesting part to me is just to kind of see how it's unfolded, and then to sort of compare and contrast these Naz and Julius contracts against some of the other deals to bigs around the league that are going down too. And I don't think you can look at the price point at Naz Reid's deal and see it to be too expensive, or Julius Randle's, when again you look at the Miles Turner, Jakob Poeltl, Jabari Smith, all these other guys.
Yeah.
What they're signing for, it all seems to be very reasonable pricing. I think it's just a question of, do you like the idea of running it back or not? And you can say no to that, but my retort to that would again be, what is the alternative? What is a practical alternative that could have come to be? I think if you're going to take a run it back sort of look, you can't be too disappointed with how this all shook out.
So if they only add one more player, let's say there's no big trades made, they probably have room for one more guy. Yes, they have 2 roster spots, I believe. Well, point guard, big man, backup, defensive-minded center. I know they drafted a couple, but I don't think any people truly believe they're ready this season. What's a bigger need if they only can bring one guy in, point guard or big man? Which way would you go?
Well, let's talk about this point guard thing, because I think that's what everybody's on, and I get it, right? Because you have a 38-year-old point guard and a 20-year-old point guard as the 2 players on your roster. So to some extent, that screams need, right? But Mike Conley's going to still play 20 minutes a night, and Rob Dillingham, you want to be playing 15 to 20 minutes a night, right? So how much room even is there for a backup point guard to come sign here? Why would you sign here if you're a backup point guard looking for minutes? I mean, maybe you can convince yourself there's a 12 to 15 minutes per game backup point guard role. But I would also point to Anthony Edwards. I think he's the point guard of this team too. And I look at Mike Conley plus Rob Dillingham plus point Ant minutes, and I'm pretty sure that's 48 right there. Not to say that they couldn't use depth there, but I don't think you're going to really be able to take Tyus, for example, right? Like he goes to Orlando, $7 million on his deal. What would have the opportunity exactly been? Does he play over Rob and then Rob's not playing anymore? Like I don't know. I see the need, of course. I just don't know how it would have functionally or will all functionally staple all together. And to me, that means it'll probably just end up shaking out to be a minimum contract point guard just to be there. So I remember Monte Morris's role 2 years ago after they traded for him. That's what I'm kind of thinking at point guard at least. Yeah,
I think from my standpoint, it's is Conley going to fall off a cliff at some point? We know he's brilliant for his age, terrific player, and maybe on an expiring contract, he's a guy they dangle to a team, and you don't have him for the full season, and you just want to protect yourself with a Malcolm Brogdon or somebody that may not look like he's going to get a lot of minutes early, but things might change as the season goes on. And if Conley breaks down, now you just have Rob, who I'm bullish on, but we don't know if he's ready for that big of a role. I just feel like there's got to be some guys out there willing to take a chance that there might be an opportunity here if Tim Connolly decides to move some chess pieces around.
But why would you come if you're Malcolm Brogdon? That's what I keep going back to. Go to those guys. Is that the best role for you out there if you're Malcolm Brogdon? I don't know. You're on a contender. Maybe that pushes it over. But do you get where I'm coming from?
100%.
I don't. Of course, there is a risk that Mike Conley gets hurt. But I think prevailing assumption once we get around to training camp next season is that Mike Conley is going to be the starter and have a similar role to what he did a year ago. So if you're Malcolm Brogdon, you're at least starting the season behind that wall. I don't know. If I was the agent of one of these point guards that could kind of pick their spot for a minimum contract, I'm not sure if I was trying to use this year to leverage myself for free agency and get a bigger deal a year from now. I'm not sure if I would choose Minnesota because it's weirdly open and weirdly crammed. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
No, it's fair, and I understand it. I'm, like all fans, I'm looking at it. Yeah, 20 and 38. It'd be nice to have somebody in between there that you can rely on if you decide to move things around. But I guess you could always acquire one.
Ant, you got to remember Ant, man. Ant plays point guard more than anybody on this team.
But do we like
right?
that? Do we want Ant initiating the offense? Is that the best version of Ant we're going to have? Because Trent maintains that he wants Ant off the ball.
I don't know. I mean, 1998. I just that's not how it works anymore, man. Right? Like, plays like Ant. You're just gonna feed him at 16 feet, like post up, go Carmelo. No, man, that's not gonna work. It's 2025. You do that, they're gonna get cooked. You know how many teams have like offensive ratings of 120? Like, this is a layer of different efficiency, and to get Ant to be operating at his peak efficiency, you need him to be shooting threes and self-creating threes off the dribble, which, by the way, he's the best that the NBA is doing outside of Steph Curry. He's the guy for that. That's his job. He's the point guard. And they're just needing to be filling in minutes around that. Sure, can I get him off the ball a little bit when they're putting two on the ball? Yeah, we saw that during the playoffs, too. But that was a reaction to get him off the ball at the top, because every team is scared of Ant when he's creating offense at the top of the floor. I guarantee you this offense stinks next year if you just start playing Ant through 16 feet, square up to the basket and try and create a bunch of 2-point mid-range jump shots. I mean,
well,
it's 2025.
Promise me he'll work on his handle just a little bit, so we don't have our hearts in our throats sometimes. End of games. I love Ant like everybody does. I'm not sold. And I don't like Giannis playing the point for the Bucks either. And he does it. A little bit. Yeah, I mean, look, he's a little loosey-goosey with the ball sometimes. I'm nitpicking because he's brilliant. We know this. But, yeah, his handle, he could improve his handle just a little bit. I think we all have seen that.
I would call it decision-making. He needs to improve his decision-making once he sees a crowd. And I think what you're talking about is driving into crowds and losing like trying to come through there, trying to split the defense there. I think Ant has a pretty incredible handle. I think it's the avoiding turnovers by forcing himself into defenses that are trying to take him away, which is the story of the 24-25 Minnesota Timberwolves offense. Was they're putting two on the ball on Ant all the time. And he began learning how to handle that, and it wasn't perfect. There were turnovers, there were all those things, but I think it's a product of his decision-making in those situations more than it is a technical skill.
All right, fair enough. Backup center then? I mean, are you as concerned about the non-Rudy minutes, the way the roster's currently construed, or, again, give Nas some time? He's not a defender, but where are you going to find a guy, or let the young guy see if he might actually be ready to give you 8 or 10 minutes right off the bat?
Yeah, not the young guys. I mean, he's 18, too young. I do think, to me, I think if we're talking about like signing a minimum contract point guard or a minimum contract big, a center, I think you could use the insurance more in the bigs department. Now, that might not be in the rotation at all. I'm not saying, say they go sign Larry Nance Jr. I don't know if Larry Nance Jr. then becomes part of the night-to-night bigs rotation, but if and when Julius, Nas, or Rudy get hurt, you got to be able to put another big body in there. And I think especially if it's Rudy, because if Rudy gets hurt, I don't know. You just playing Nas at the 5 right now.
Yeah.
If you have a full game of no rim protection or minimal rim protection, to me, I think the big spot is a need. And, Luka Garza kind of held that fourth big role last season. He's gone. But I think so. And just a rim protecting, rebounding 5. I think they could use another one of those. They're going to be flawed if it's for a minimum contract. But yeah, that's what I would choose between point guard and center.
Yeah, I think I would as well. I hate to focus on the end of the bench, but the Joe Ingles return, I think, caught a lot of Wolves fans off guard. Chemistry, having a guy in the end of the bench that can be kind of a coach. Is that what we look at with that kind of signing? And were you surprised that they brought him back because he thought he was going to come here with a much bigger role? Then the Randall Dante trade happens, and suddenly the minutes are gone. I thought it was going to be one and done and call it a career. Were you surprised that he's coming back?
Yeah, I mean, I was a little surprised in the sense that I thought the career just it might be the time. He's got a young family. His family's still living in Orlando. Navigating some of that. So he's 38 years old and didn't really have a role. I thought it was potential that he could just not be back. But at the same time, this is very much Tim Connelly behavior to have the very last spot on the bench be a guy who's going to cause no problems. You remember last year they signed P.J. Dozier?
Yeah.
Like that was the last guy, and you realize P.J. Dozier was literally playing in Serbia the year before. Well, Conley knew him from his time in Denver. He was on those Denver Nuggets teams when Conley was there. And he just had him come over because he knew PJ would be glad to be back in the NBA and pumped to have the 15th spot on the bench, And I think I do think there's something to that, because sometimes on other teams, particularly if it's a really young player, you're not as receptive to that. Not only are you not playing, but you're never going to play sort of role. And I think they just view Joe as a guy that they saw accept that role last season, even though it's not what he was signed to be. And his experience and understanding is valuable for a team that needs to improve in the basketball IQ department. He's a big coach on the floor for them. And I get people being unenthused by the move. Could there been something more interesting to happen? Is there something that could have had a little bit more upside with the minimum contract? Maybe. But that's their thinking, I know, on that, is just get a good vibes guy at the end of the bench. Talking
with Dane Moore, hosts his own podcast, the Dane Moore Podcast, wildly popular among Wolves fans. If you haven't caught it, you ought to. It's available on all audio platforms where you might look for it. Let's go back to the draft for just a second.
Sure.
Were you surprised? Logical thinking is, look, they've got 9, 10, 11 guys they like. You're picking at 17. How likely are you going to get a guy that's going to usurp any of those guys on the depth chart right off the bat? Stash a guy, bring in a guy with a lot of upside that might be in a perfect spot learning from Rudy. Or were you a little disappointed that they didn't move it or try to do something to shake up this rotation? Where were you on how Connelly and his staff attacked the two nights of the draft?
Yeah, I'll just start by saying I'm not like a big draft research guy. I had watched a bunch of these prospects, including Berenger, before this happened. But I say it to mean that I came into the draft and with them having 17 and 31 and understanding the logic of trading out altogether and just trading this first-round pick for a future first-round pick that maybe you can trade in another deal. Mm-hmm. Just when the trade deadline comes around or whenever, just having a first offer. Because now they do not have future first that they can trade. So when they drafted Berenger, part of me was like, okay, real development project. This is going to be a while. You used one of your last tradable kind of assets on this pick. But spending some more time and watching him play, I don't know how much you've got to see of like clips and stuff, but kid's fast, man. Like this isn't just like some drop back to the basket center, in the Rudy Gobert mode, the mold. They're the same in that they're both French. Other than that, this is going to be, if it works out for Berenger or even just in Summer League, what we're going to see is this is going to be a 5 who's going to be able to get out on the perimeter and switch, show, trap, while also being able to play back and drop to the rim. In theory, Berenger is the kind of ideal, versatile defender at the 5 position in the modern NBA. How long is that going to take to get there when he's only 18 years old right now? Probably a while. This isn't going to be a Terrence Shannon Jr. thing where we're, 5 months into the season, is this one of the eight best players on the team? Right. It's going to be a slower burn there, but I'm intrigued. I've grown intrigued by the defensive versatility and sort of the vision that signals of when this Gobert time is over. I think this team's going to be a team that's ready to run, and get out and play a little bit faster. Berenger should be able to inspire that, I think, on both sides of the ball, if actualized. Yeah,
agree. And I have watched a lot of the YouTube highlights, and you see the potential. And what I find fascinating about him is he's only playing hoops because he couldn't find cleats big enough to be playing soccer. 4 years ago, the guy had never picked up a basketball. And the fact that he's gone in 4 years to a mid-first round, just outside the lottery draft pick, tells me that, man, with coaching and learning this game, the upside, the potential has got to have you salivating just a little bit. Yeah, a lot can go wrong, obviously, but you can't teach the arm, the wingspan, the length, as you say, the athletic ability to get up and down the floor, which could change everything if it's not Rudy lumbering and it's Berenger 3 years from now. So I'm on board. I think it's kind of fun. And, for me, I'm geeky enough to watch Summer League like a lot of us are. And just knowing he's going to be out there that first night against a fellow first-round pick Derek Queen, let's see what he's got, right? Let's see what he can do against the big Big Ten guy that's played, one and done, lottery, trade up guy. Let's see if he can hold his own. That's going to be interesting to watch.
Dude, this Summer League team's going to be no joke.
Who's on it? I haven't heard. Do you know?
I don't. It's not official yet, but we interviewed Wolves GM Matt Lloyd afterwards, and he talked about. Well, he kind of talked about this idea that their deep bench now. They have a young guy at every position. Berenger at the 5, Leonard Miller at the 4, Terrence Shannon Jr. at the 3, Jalen Clark at the 2, and Rob Dillingham at the 1. And I'm kind of I'm interested in all those guys in an NBA context. Is that going to be your starting 5, in Summer League with a couple other players there too? It's going to be I think it's going to be a fun Summer League thing. And everyone calls it nerdy or whatever. I don't know. I go out to it every year. I'm there. I think you learn some stuff, or at least stuff to note and kind of put in your pocket for a later date of, here comes Jalen Clark all of a sudden in the rotation. All right, we'll call back to what did this game look like at Summer League. So I think this year's going to be really fun. For a team that just went to the Western Conference Finals, to have a deep, sort of loaded Summer League team, I don't know. It's kind of cool by me.
No doubt. I'll let you go with this because you mentioned Leonard Miller, and I've kind of had a soft spot in my heart for him ever since they drafted him, and he showed out. He has in the G League. He did in that All-Star opportunity he got. He looked like the best guy on that team. Bringing Naz and Randall back doesn't seem to clear a path for him. And understood they might make moves where maybe Randall isn't on this team for 3 years. But do you see a way where he gets an opportunity to get some minutes next season the way it's currently constituted? Or is it, again, he's injury insurance, he's going to have to wait his turn?
I mean, I guess if they don't sign another 5, Leonard might be your guy if Rudy, Naz, or Julius get hurt or something. But I don't think he's ready. I don't think he's ready to be an NBA rotation player
for a contender, especially.
And not that he's not worthy of being on the roster or whatever. I will say when I was in Oklahoma City, I was at practice, and one thing that kind of bothered me about watching Leonard Miller in Summer League a year ago was just his shot mechanics were all over the place. His leg would flail out and kick out, and I was just watching him shoot at practice. And it's a good reminder of, even though these guys aren't playing, they're working all year round, and people see Leonard Miller's got a new kind of slowed down, constructed shot, and that's the intrigue with him too, right? Is that if he is a big who can kind of space the floor, it gives the Wolves a look of being able to play 5 out, outside of Naz, if this does hit and when he is ready. Because I thought that was interesting about, Berenger, not a shooter. If he's your center of the future, right, you go from Rudy at the 5 non-shooter to Berenger non-shooter. It's not playing 5 out. But Leonard Miller has a chance to be a floor spacing big there as well, along with all the athleticism. So I'm excited to see him, but he's not penciled into my depth chart.
Gotcha. When does your next podcast drop?
I think in about 15 minutes. So, we were talking about all of this stuff in longer depth on today's show.
Fantastic. We'll look for that. Dane, appreciate the time. As always, keep up the great work. Enjoy your time in Vegas next week.
Appreciate you too, man. Later.
Dane Moore, check him out, the Dane Moore podcast. Always fresh content. It seems like every couple of days he's got a new show. Appreciate that. All right, we'll break here. I got a couple open segments, so I'll welcome phone calls if you're so interested. 800-320-5326. We'll always answer text. The Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line 64686. You can tweet me at TCHeadCheese. That works it well. Bottom of the hour, Marnie Gellner joins to talk Lynx, going for another Commissioner's Cup. We'll talk some Wolves with her. Double T in the house 1 hour from now for the 5 o'clock hour. It's Hoops Heaven on Barrero on a Tuesday afternoon. We're back after these.